Can you really build a six-figure Kindle Direct publishing business without ever writing a single word yourself? My guest today did just that, and she's here to tell you how. Hi, Carla. Welcome.
Hi, how are you, Tim?
I'm doing good. It's so good having you on the show. This is Old Friend Week. I had another mutual friend of ours on, Dale Roberts, Kelly's husband,
Oh, wonderful.
recently, and I told him I was interviewing you today, and he's like, "Oh, I want to listen in," and I'm like, "You've got to get in line with everyone else." So, appreciate you being here, Carla Marie. You are one of the most successful Kindle Direct publishers out there. I know you've got a lot of knowledge. You've always got people, wanting to get you on shows like this and pick your brain. And so, what I want to do on this show, of course, is talk about what you do and what you've done. But I think you have a lot of knowledge on the business side of things that authors and publishers need to hear. So before we go down that path, Carla, give the audience just a really quick bio of you.
Sure. So my name is Carla Marie, and I've been publishing in KDP for the past 3.5 years. And in 2014, I decided to focus on publishing exclusively in the romance niche because I did some research, saw that those books do very, very well. There's a hungry audience for them. So I focused on that, really took a lot of action, committed to it, and I grew my income quite large quite quickly, and had my first 10K month in December 2014.
Awesome. What did that feel like?
Pardon me?
What did that feel like?
It felt pretty amazing. That was a major goal I had, and when I accomplished it, I was over the moon, and it's been great ever since. I did six figures in 2015, six figures 2016, doing great this year. And now my Kindle publishing business is automated. So I have an assistant who helps me with most of the tasks in my business. So it's been pretty incredible. And now my time's freed up from doing the actual day-to-day tasks. So I focus now mostly on teaching other people how to develop profitable ebook publishing businesses.
Awesome. That's how you and I met. I actually found you online a couple of years ago, and was a student of yours, and did very well with the program. And I always recommend it. What did you do before you got into this? Because the last 2 or 3 years, you've been, six figures, selling tons and tons of book on Amazon. You are now, in my opinion, probably in the top 2 to 3 experts on Amazon and Kindle Direct Publishing. And 3 years ago, before you got into this, what were you doing?
I was a yoga teacher. So I had my own yoga teaching business. I mostly taught in office places on work hours. So I did that. I taught at some studios, focused on therapeutic yoga, but I was teaching like 20 classes a week. And there's definitely a max when you're doing something so physical, right? So it really pushed me to explore the possibility for developing something where I can have passive income. Mm-hmm. And that's where the ebook publishing came in.
Now, were you always entrepreneurial?
Yeah, definitely. I didn't officially have my own serious business until I started teaching yoga. But as a kid, I was always thinking about little businesses I can do. And when I was 12, I sold little magnets that had pictures of actors and musicians and stuff on them, from Teen Beat magazine or Tiger Beat and Bop magazine. So I cut those out, glued it on magnets, and sold them out of my locker when I was 12. So that was my first experience with being an entrepreneur. Honestly, I never fit into conventional 9-to-5 jobs ever. Mm-hmm. Every time I had an office job, I think that's the closest I ever felt to actually being really depressed and couldn't get up in the morning and felt just thinking about it makes me makes me not feel very good. So not the life for me. So I was a musician for a while too, did some touring with that. And while I was a musician, I did what most musicians do, and I worked in restaurants. So yeah, I've had a kind of a few different experiences, but the entrepreneurial life is what I'm most suited to for sure.
Yeah. What initially drew you to Kindle? Because you weren't a writer, were you?
No, I did a little bit of freelance writing on and off. Did these like wrote articles for websites, and like if probably if you Googled my name, Carla Blocka, you'd find out like some ancient like articles I'd written on weird health disorders or something like that. So yeah, so I did that kind of work on and off, but I just wasn't satisfied with it. Because again, trading time for money, very particular editors where you'd submit something and then they come back with a whole bunch of edits, and I realized I'm like, wow, I'm not, considering how much I'm being paid, it ends up being like less than minimum wage when I look at the amount of time I put in. So yeah, I mean, but as far as fiction goes, definitely not a fiction writer at all. I can do research and come up with ideas and things like that, but as far as executing the writing, it's not my strength.
Yeah.
That's where the outsourcing comes in.
Well, the one thing that reason that I think you've been really successful is you are so detail oriented, and you are probably one of the best researchers I've ever seen. I'm an old business guy, and I do a lot of research when it comes to business, but you really, it's what impressed me when I first got to know you and I was taking your classes. I'm like, wow, this is an enormous amount of research that you put in, and you found all this out. Now, what initially, and maybe this was a product of your research, what interested you in publishing in the romance genre?
Definitely that was, as a result of some research I did, because I started to look really deeply into what do readers want and what is really popular, and where can I publish where I can make the most money, essentially, and serve an audience, right? So doing some research in the bestseller list in the Kindle store, I saw that romance did really well and does really well. And romance readers, they don't just pick up one book in a certain niche and they're done with it. They will read books weekly or, a couple times a week, books in that niche. So yeah, it was a result of my research. And that's what I consider research to be a really high level task in this business too. And so I still spend time, a couple times a week, I go in the store and I see what's trending, and I, use it to strategize and make game plans. And so it's a big part of the business that I'm still participating in, that I still do, and I haven't outsourced that part.
Do you remember the very first book that you published?
Yeah, I do.
Tell me.
It was awful.
Yeah, you don't have to give me names or titles or anything, but tell me a little bit about that book and what did you learn from it, and was it successful at all?
Sure. So my first book that I published was first romance book I published was a paranormal romance book. And it was about a wolf shifter.
Gotta love those shifters, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. And actually, I honestly think it was a menage book too, if I recall correctly. So 2 werewolf shifters and, a girl. And it wasn't very good. And the cover I had made for it just wasn't good. And this was back in 2014, so things have shifted a little bit as far as the level of competition in the store. But I published that book, just kind of gave it a shot, experimented, published it, went up live one night. And then the next morning I went and was checking my results, and I charged $2.99 for the book in the store. Went and checked, how my numbers were doing. And the next morning, overnight, I had sold 7 copies. I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. So I realized I'm like, okay, I'm on to something. I've got to do this.
Well, one of the things that Dale and I talk about all the time is how, the quality of the book really, it has an impact on the success of the book, but a lot of it has to do with the marketing side of it. And as a writer myself, it frustrates me to no end to know that there are writers out there who really can write great books, but if they're lousy marketers, no one's ever going to read them. So talk a little bit about the learning process over the last couple of years, because you're not a writer, but you are a publisher, and you started out doing everything: the research, the marketing, the outsourcing, the managing. Talk about how that was in the beginning and how it's really changed to the point where you are today.
Okay, sure. So I think what you're saying about having to be a marketer is key, is essential. And I see a lot of resistance with that, with a lot of authors.
Mhm.
You know, they want to practice their art. They want to.
Oh, we're a very pompous, broke bunch, us authors.
But in order to have any sort of success, you have to accept that you're a marketer.
Mhm.
You have to accept it, embrace it, learn and execute on that. And it can make the world of difference. Like you were saying, there are so many. I can imagine there's thousands and thousands of books in the Kindle store right now, which are amazing, amazing works. But they have awful covers, terrible descriptions. They don't know how to do keywords. They don't know how to do any marketing, don't know how to develop an audience. And they don't want to, because they don't want to put themselves out there, and they don't want to risk failing.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it too. A lot of people to get stuck in their comfort zones. And so putting on that marketer hat is out of their comfort zone, so they don't want to do it. But it is amazing to me how, if you learn the marketing end of things properly, the success that is possible and waiting for you, especially with the resources we have now, with like all these ways to build an audience online. It's amazing. And I've seen amazing transformations and growth and progress in some of my students who have really focused on that marketing angle. And I mean, they have good quality books. That's the thing. You need to have a good quality book. You can't publish crap. Right. But if you have a good quality book and you have all those marketing pieces in place, like, the world is your oyster. So it's an amazing opportunity. And for me at the beginning, I really didn't know what I was doing. Like I said, I'm like, oh, I'll just experiment and throw this book up there. And when in the beginning, when I first started, competition was way less in the store. And I mean, I could do really well with publishing books, throwing them up there, just letting Amazon's algorithm do its thing and not have to do any outside advertising or any list building or any marketing or anything like that.
The good old days,
Times
right?
have changed. Times have changed a lot. And so it's absolutely necessary. And I see that, especially a lot of new authors who are publishing books in the Kindle store, that they expect, like, well, I put my book on Amazon, it's supposed to be selling, right? It's like, well, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to get visible, to maintain visibility, to build your audience. So,
well, I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize. They will look at a Carla Marie or some of the other folks that are doing this, and they'll like, well, I can do that too. And you get the same emails that I do. I get emails every day. I get a lot of comments here on YouTube. I want to be a Kindle Direct publisher. Tell me how to get started. Of course, I have no money, and I have no time. And it's like, you probably don't remember the old internet marketing days 10 or 15 years ago. It was the same way. Everyone thought they could jump on, start an online business, be rich by Friday. And that's not the way it works. And it's certainly not the way it works with Amazon, because, Amazon is the 800-pound gorilla when it comes to the marketplace. But, Amazon can be a cantankerous gorilla at times, and you and I have talked about this in the past. Talk a little bit about some of the pitfalls, because it's not as easy as just throwing up a book and sitting back and cashing the check. Talk about, using Amazon as your platform.
Okay. So Amazon is an amazing, amazing opportunity because it's so massive. Mm-hmm. You automatically have worldwide distribution. You have your book available on this trusted website where people already have their credit card hooked up. They just need to click once and they buy, right? But also, if you're publishing on Amazon, you are essentially agreeing to whatever their terms are. They have several terms of service, of course, but you're agreeing that they at any point can make a decision as to which way your business is going to go, right?
Yeah.
So of course it's a great opportunity, but it's also there are, you have to be aware that you have to absolutely play by their rules in order to be successful.
And sometimes those rules change daily and you don't even know it.
Yes, they change.
Or you don't know the rules.
They can change very quickly. Yeah. And sometimes it's like, I feel like it's still like a business that's in growth. Like they're still kind of like feeling their way into how to deal with their authors. Right. Because things can change very quickly. Oftentimes authors aren't made aware of changes in terms of service and whatnot. And that's why it's important to have a network of people online that you can, like other authors, other publishers, where you can help each other out and communicate. So that's really important. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, how you were just saying that you get people contacting you saying like, hey, I want to make $10,000 a month by next month, kind of thing.
Yeah. By Friday.
Yeah, no money, all these things. I think it's so common for people just to see the result and the event. So they see me, they see you, they see other people, oh, successful, like that, like they just see that end event. And they don't see the process that led up to that. And so the process is key. There is a process you need to develop. There is investment involved. You can't just go in with no money and expect to be making, 5-figure months immediately. I mean, I do work with some people, like some of my students are writers, so they do write their own content, but you're still, paying for covers or paying for promotions, paying for some advertising. You're growing slowly, and that's the thing. This requires patience, commitment, consistency, and that's the thing. I see people that they, see a little hurt, a little stumbling block, a little obstacle. And some, I mean, obstacles are bound to come up in every business, but they'll see an obstacle and then they'll quit. And it's the people that succeed have those same obstacles. They just don't quit. So
yeah, I think that's. Yeah, that's a really good point. And I know you're very big on motivation, but you're also very big on execution and action. And I think the difference between what you've managed to do in the last 3 years and 99.99% of the other people out there is you approached this as a business. You didn't approach it as a get rich quick thing. Because I know your processes. I know how your business operates. You've been very meticulous. You have built a business. You have not just tried to do the quick hit. And that's what I tell these folks, you've got to do this, this, and this, because there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. Most people want to go from here to there. But Carla, you've spent 3 years getting from here, here, and here. And
there's a lot of this in between, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. Up and down like a roller coaster. Talk a little bit about that. Over the last 3 years, you've had really tremendous success, but talk about some of the failures and disappointments that have come along.
Sure. Let me think. Failures and disappointments. There have been some times when there are hiccups, and a lot of it has to do with the fast moving changes of being an online business, where something would drastically change in, the way Amazon, for instance, this is a good example. Amazon, they just released yesterday, Kemp 3.0. So it's this, they have a program where you can publish your books in KDP Select, and that allows readers to borrow your book, and you get paid by the page read. And so they first launched that 2 years ago when it was Kemp 1.0. And so when that came about, that was a big shift for everyone. Everyone's like, is everybody
freaking out now? That's usually
for sure. Because they used to pay by the borrow, like every time someone borrowed your book and I think read 10% or something, you got paid a base amount. Like everyone got that same amount. But then when they started paying by the page read, everyone's like, oh my God, what is going on? The sky's falling. It was crazy. And there's been a couple of those moments, those kind of sky is falling moments. But you have to be flexible, stay adaptable, stay calm, and just weather the storm, because there are bound to be ups and downs in any business you choose. And that is another thing I've noticed about people who are really successful publishers is they stay like level-headed about it, and they don't get overly emotional about the ups and downs, because it's going to happen. You have to accept that and stay aware that it is possible at any moment for things to change, but don't be paranoid or, you know, overly reactive about it. Because I see that a lot on some of the forums. There's like a lot of reactivity and people freaking out and then causing mass hysteria. And that's another thing that I think is really important, that you really choose wisely who is going to be influencing you. So I try to eliminate as much noise as possible now in my sphere of like where I'm looking for advice or where I'm looking for resources and stuff, because there is a lot of noise out there.
You know, every day the sky is falling. You know what I mean? It's just, and I see this too. And the one thing that I've noticed about you, and this may just be your personality, because I know you're a very serene person. When everyone else is yelling, the sky is falling, you are just kind of, let's just take a breath. Let's see what's going to happen, and talk about that, because that is one of the traits of all successful entrepreneurs is, you know, when everyone else is, you know, the world is going to hell in a handbasket, you and me are selling baskets, you know? Yeah. So talk a little bit about your attitude when it comes to all that sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah. I think you summed it up. I stay as relaxed as I possibly can and know that I'm going to figure it out. Like, it's going to be figured out. I have no qualms. I may have to pivot. I may have to adjust in a different way. But yeah, it's going to get figured out. And I never have doubted that, and I don't doubt it. And this is kind of a little bit more on a like esoteric level, but in like any challenges that present themselves is because there's like a seed of amazing potential there. And amazing growth and amazing opportunity. So you kind of have to like sit with that challenge and explore in that challenge where you need to grow and what action you need to take that is going to bring you out of that challenge and take you to like a higher place.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about, again, how your business has changed, because I know in the beginning you were doing everything, but now after 3 years, you have a very nice, very successful 6-figure business. And a lot of that is outsourced. I know you're not only doing the publishing, but you do a lot of teaching and coaching and that sort of thing. Talk about the decision, number one, to outsource. My channel came out with a video today on virtual assistants. I know you've used virtual assistants, but talk about, you know, when it comes that time, how do you determine what to let go and how do you manage the process? Because a lot of virtual assistants, you know, they're not entirely reliable, and they're not going to approach your business as you do. But talk about how have you delegated that, because now your publishing business by and large is passive.
Yeah, for sure. So in 2015, I hired one VA who ended up being very unreliable, like you said, and in 1 month it basically stalled my entire business, which was not cool. And so at that point I started to get a lot more I got focused on what qualities I was looking for in a VA. It's so hard to tell sometimes when you don't know somebody, but then I hired another VA in the fall of 2015 who's still with me, and she's absolutely amazing. And it's been pretty, it was a learning process in letting go, because that's another thing. I saw myself totally bottlenecking my publishing business. Had a million things going on. I couldn't, and you know, I started teaching as well at that point, and I couldn't manage it all. So for the sake of my business, like my publishing continuing to make me some money, I needed to get a VA, and I needed to let go of the control, and I needed to employ some trust that somebody else is going to be able to execute what I do, like the actions that I do in my business, and which includes giving my VA access to my KDP account. And I know some publishers are really hesitant to do that, but I honestly think it's holding you back at a certain point if you're not going to let go of that control. But that being said, it's important to be slow to hire, quick to fire.
Yeah, that's that. I have that tattooed on a certain part of my body here. So what did you go to Upwork looking for the VAs, or what was the process you went through?
Yeah, I found my VAs on Upwork. Yeah, it worked out quite well. Did Skype interviews, which is really important. Like having an interview where I can see the person, can talk to them, really relate to them, find out what their past experiences, find out what their goals are, just kind of get to know them and just get a feel for them. And honestly, I don't know if this is good or bad, but I hired my current VA based on like the vibe I got from her and the fact that she was incredibly experienced and she did great. And one of the things that I did as soon as I hired her is I started just giving her like one small task at a time and seeing how she performed before I handed over everything. So
yeah. So you really vetted her, you interviewed her just like you would an employee, and then you tested her along the way. You gave her tasks until you could fully trust her. And is she still with you?
Yeah, she's still with me, and she's great. Yeah, she's really awesome. One thing I want to emphasize is that I don't recommend getting a VA and outsourcing your business until you yourself are completely confident in your process. So you have your process down, you have it all organized, so you can like lay it out clearly in written instructions or video instructions, have all your spreadsheets organized. So make sure you're confident in it, you're consistent, you're profitable, all of those things before you outsource to somebody else. Because that's another mistake I see people sometimes make, or it's a mistake in my eyes, is that they start their publishing business from the point that they're like, oh, I'm not going to do any work, I'm going to outsource everything. It's kind of like they read the 4-Hour Work Week and they're like, I want that right now.
I read the 4-Hour Work Week, and at the time I was working probably 70 hours a week in my business. And, in theory, it's great. But so many people, and I mentioned this in the video I did today, it's almost like their VAs, the number of VAs they have are like, bragging rights. Well, I've got 5 VAs. How many do you have? But the point is, how do those VAs help you conduct your business and do the business? Because, I think you're very lucky that you have found a really good VA that's been with you all this time. And you probably consider her, she's an integral part of the business, almost mentally like a partner who's doing these things for you.
Yeah, she's been truly amazing. I also have another VA right now that helps me just on the tech side of everything, as far as like when I have to have websites and landing pages and stuff like that created, since I do a lot of teaching now and stuff. Right. And that's another thing that was bottlenecking my business big time, like in the past half year. So I was like, oh, I'll just do everything myself. No. Yeah. It's like the learning curve for me to learn to do tech things and executing and having it look good. It's just not worth it to me. So I found a wonderful VA. Now, and anytime I need anything tech related, I shoot him a message. He has it done in like a day.
That's awesome. I think it comes down to, what's the best use of your time? Is it
exactly?
Are you making money building a WordPress website, or are you making money doing coaching or teaching and that sort of thing? I do want to talk about that, because your business has evolved to the point now where you have one of the top coaching programs online for KDP. Let's talk a little bit about how you got started coaching and where the program is now.
Sure. So the first student I had was late 2014, when I hadn't even reached my 5-figure mark yet, but I had already gone to a place where I saw this process that was really effective. And so my first student was actually a friend of mine. And so helped her get started in creating her business, and she's a stay-at-home mom and makes $10K a month now still. So that really helped her out. But then it was early 2015 where a couple of groups I was a part of online, I shared my success with a group, and then immediately got some people messaging me asking if I could teach them. And at that point I wasn't seriously like trying to build a coaching business, but I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. And then it just started that way, and started slowly collecting students. And now a couple of years later, I've worked with almost 200 people across 6 continents, and it's been pretty amazing, the results that people have had. And I have a great group who have become friends, online friends, and really supportive groups. So
yeah, and I know it, and I actually do business with several of the folks out of the group. So I'm all full disclosure here, I went through your program, gosh, a year and a half, 2 years ago, something like that. And
December 2015.
Yeah. And did real well until Amazon said, nah, we've had enough of you. But that's a whole nother video. And that's one of the things, I hear this a lot, not only from folks who do what you do, but the author side. Amazon can be, again, really cantankerous to deal with. It's really vital that you stay up on their terms, even though they seem to be fluid, Carla, where they change constantly. But we won't go into my diatribe against Amazon because I still do some business with them. Do you enjoy the coaching side of things?
I love it. Like that is what is fulfilling and rewarding to me is teaching. And that's how I like to impact people. Honestly, the like day-to-day tasks of doing like a publishing business aren't that interesting to me. And that's why I got a VA to do it. So
there you go.
I want to impact people by helping them create what I've created. And it's been incredibly fulfilling and rewarding to be able to do that.
Carla, I know most of the books that you have done have been on the fiction side, romance, that sort of thing. Have you ever dabbled in nonfiction at all?
Yeah, so the first books that I published were in nonfiction. Like that's how I got into ebook publishing. It's how I learned the actual basic processes of it. Mm-hmm. So I have a few random nonfiction books that I published that are obsolete. They're probably all ranked 2 million in the store.
That's funny.
Yeah, and it was kind of just a learning experiment. And that's when they weren't performing the way I wanted my ebooks to perform, that's when I started exploring romance. And I love publishing in fiction because the only responsibility there is to entertain and to reach and to connect with an audience. And that to me is really fun and it's rewarding. And with nonfiction, for me, pretending to have authority in a niche and getting an outsourced book written and having people come to you to solve their problems when you're not an actual authority, it just doesn't sit well. Like that to me just isn't how I want to be conducting my business. And I know a lot of people, especially when they first start in publishing, that's what they do. But I mean, if you actually are interested in a niche and an authority, by all means, I think it's great that you publish books to help people. But when you see people pretending to be doctors and publishing like books to help with different illnesses and stuff,
there are so many people out there that pretend to be the authority, and they're making more money on their authority than they are actually on the practice. But hey, anytime you're ready to write a book, your ghostwriter is right here, by the way. So throwing that out there to you. I want to talk a little bit more about, we'll put links to everything you're doing down below, but I want to talk really quickly about pen names. And, a lot of the folks that do what you and I do use pen names. Have you always used pen names for your books?
Always. I have not published any under my real name. And it's funny because there is someone who used the name Carla Marie to publish a romance book. And It's awful. It's like terrible cover, terrible everything. So sometimes he emails me like, I only found one book published by you. I'm like, it's not me.
That's funny.
So no, always pen names.
Have you used one pen name or multiples?
I have a few different ones in a few different niches. So I have a couple of different pen names, but try not to have that many going at once. And that's one of the things I recommend to people is that if you're going to use pen names, keep them to a minimum, like have as few as possible, so you can more easily develop like a brand and an audience.
Let's talk about that. That's a really good segue here into branding, because the pen name, I think the ones that are having the most success for building a really good library of books and a fan base and an ARC team around these pen names as if they were actual people. And talk a little bit about the importance of doing that, but also about branding, because you mentioned that. And, people are faithful and loyal to a brand. And boy, that really applies in the romance business, doesn't it?
Definitely. I think it applies to all authors, all niches, is you have to kind of brand yourself. And so as far as, a lot of people are using pen names. And I have some male students who have female pen names, and they build brands around that. But I think you kind of have to adopt that as part of who you are and communicate to your audience as that person, and connect with people that way and develop a relationship. So kind of integrate it into who you are.
Yeah. It's almost like you're creating this persona. And I've actually had some people say, well, that's just lying. You shouldn't do that. I have people who preach to me because I ghostwrite books. And, my thing is most celebrities use fake names, and and who you see is not really who they are. And so that's really what a pen name is not just a name, it's an entire author persona, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I personally, I see nothing wrong with it. I see only positives to it, because especially if something like in romance, you're creating this like whole realm of desire and fantasy and all these sorts of things. Like, of course, you're going to create something that caters to that and something that exudes that.
Yeah. Well, I have, again, full disclosure, I've written a lot of books, and some of the books that I've written were romance, and they went to #1 on Amazon, and I'm a 57-year-old white guy. This is not the brand you want behind the romance book. It's like Jack Nicholson writing romance, right? In the time we have left, speaking of that, let's talk about ghostwriters really quickly. I know that you use them for your books. Give a little advice to the folks that are looking to hire ghostwriters to write books for KDP.
Sure. Some advice: get samples, do little mini test projects before you commit to a writer. There are some amazing writers out there, but there's also a lot of not so good writers. And a lot of writers that will come up with every excuse in the book for why something's late, that kind of a thing. So there are some headaches involved too, but there are some really great writers out there that you can find for a reasonable price, but it's one of those things you get what you pay for too.
You really do. And back when I was doing the publishing, I probably talked to and interviewed probably 100 ghostwriters. And out of that 100, I might have seriously hired 5 or 6. But, there's always the issues with copyright and plagiarism. How do you protect yourself against that sort of thing? Because Amazon, they have no sense of humor when it comes to copyrights.
Definitely not. They are very quick to send you notices and ask for evidence and suspend if you can't provide the evidence. So to protect yourself against that, I recommend having a copyright or a ghostwriter agreement in place with your writers. And of course, that doesn't guarantee that someone's not going to do something, but it makes it a little less likely. And also, what else was I going to mention along those lines? You can also, like you said, interview your writers. Okay. Do Skype interviews. Get people either on the phone, get them so you're actually seeing them, like communicate with them. And I think if you're developing this kind of relationship with a writer, it's less likely that they are going to do anything that's sketchy or shady or anything like that.
Are you still using the same ghostwriters? Are you always on the hunt for great writers?
I have a really great team right now, but I'm always on the lookout for more. And, as soon as someone starts, getting really late or things like that, I'm just quicker to let them go because I know there's other ones.
Well, that's one of the things that we talk about a lot is when you are, the bad thing about outsourcing is you are turning over responsibility, not necessarily managed, but responsibility to a task to someone, and you're relying on them to do it in a timely manner, to get the schedules. When you outsource to a ghostwriter, do you have a milestone schedule? Do they have to submit chapters or numbers of words to you on any kind of schedule, or do they just get with you when the book is done?
It depends on the writer, and it depends on my relationship with them. Most of my writers now, they just submit to me the finished story. Like I don't do the milestones, but some of them I do a 50% because I trust them. Yeah. Some of them I ask for like a 50% milestone. So halfway through, submit half the book. It just depends on the writer.
Yeah. It sounds like you really have to get that relationship in place, and it's more trust than anything.
And as soon as a writer knows that you are going to provide consistent work to them, that you're going to pay them on time, that the pay's decent for them, then they're usually more than willing to be available and to take on work and stay loyal. So important for you to also be a good client too.
Do you use an ARC team?
Yes. Yeah. So that's another thing I had my VA do is built an ARC team.
ARC being Advanced Reader Copy Team, folks who read the books before publication.
For sure. And a lot of my students have built up really amazing ARC teams. And some of my students build ARC teams for every release they do. And that's very, very effective in getting a lot of reviews. But keep in mind, even when you build an ARC team, oftentimes you'll say you have like 200 people on your ARC team, you may end up getting 60 reviews.
Right. Yeah.
The reality that you have to build a huge, huge team to get a decent number of reviews.
And that really goes to building that relationship with that ARC team. Mm-hmm. You know, getting them. Yeah, because I know a lot of the folks that you've taught to do this, the ones that I know that are having really good success, have taken the time to build a really good ARC team, and they listen to that ARC team.
Yes,
you know, you don't just send them the book and then ignore them. The whole purpose is someone doing an advanced read to give you feedback. So I think you have to be flexible to do that. Carla, let's talk. We got a couple of minutes left here. The process for getting started. Now, of course, I recommend everyone, you know, if you're interested in doing like this, number one, on my book, it's education. Whether they do coaching with someone like you or they take a course or somewhere. Talk about what is your advice for folks getting started? What are some of the things they need to do?
Say focus on the foundation, learning the basics, getting to really know your niche, know what readers want, and create a high quality story that's going to give people exactly what they're looking for, and start to build your audience. Like that is the best thing you can be doing at the beginning, is building your mailing list, building that fan base, those readers you can reach out to, and just start testing, start experimenting, and focus your money and your efforts on creating high quality books, essentially.
I really like that.
That readers want. So make sure you're not publishing something just because you think the idea is cool. You know, you have to see if there's a market for it. That's another huge mistake I see people doing. Sometimes, like when they first start working with me, or people that, you know, want to get into romances, they decide like, oh, I'm just gonna publish a romance book. It's like, what's it about? Oh, it's about these two people that fall in love. Well, it's not enough, you know?
It's about a lesbian pterodactyl in love with a wolf shifter who has a brother who's a billionaire. I mean, you know, Dale and I were talking the other day about some of these books, and I mean, they are way out there, but Jesus, they sell. There is an audience, Carla, for everything.
And you know what? One of my students was nominated, became a finalist for a Hugo Award this year.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. And it was, okay, I'm not going to say what the pen name is, because it's like, I don't know. I'll say it, but if you have to like bleep it out, it's okay. Okay, it's Sticks. It's called, the pen name Sticks His Cock. And it's like dinosaur alien erotica.
And that was nominated for a Hugo. That's a science fiction award, right?
Finalist for a Hugo Award this year.
Wow. You know what? I'm going to go back to some of the old books I wrote. And well, you know, we're laughing about this, but it really is. I mean, some of the genres and the subcategories, they just blow my mind. I mean, people think I'm kidding when I'm talking about, you know, the T-Rex lover, and I still don't know how the semantics of that work because his arms are so short. But, you know, people read this stuff. You know, Carla, what I'd love to do is for us to do another show sometime talking about opt-in lists and about building that team, because we're running up on 45 minutes here, and we could talk for another couple hours. So if you are open to it, maybe we can schedule a part 2. So final tips. You've talked a lot about the business side of things and approaching it in that manner. What are your last words of advice for someone who says, Carla, I want to do what you do?
Sure. I'd say start doing your research, focus on building something that is sustainable and quality, and building your audience, and just accept there's no magic bullet. There isn't like just one thing that's going to all of a sudden make you like hugely successful, that there is a whole bunch of factors that impact success. Yeah. And your commitment, your mindset, those kind of things are make the biggest difference. Like I honestly think that is like at least 85% of the equation when it comes to success. And, there's so many blueprints for different businesses and whatnot out there that people have been successful with. And like, for instance, with my students, everyone gets the same kind of basic instruction from me. Some people go on to do really amazing things and create, wonderful recurring income from their books and have a great time with that. Other people don't do as well. And it all comes down to their belief, their thoughts, their actions.
And I think that's the thing. I mean, I used to do what you do. I had courses and classes and masterminds, and it would always frustrate me to no end because, and I know it bothers you because you're a much more sensitive person than I do. But when you see someone, take this knowledge and do nothing with it, it's like your kid's laying on the couch and he won't get up and go to class. You know what I mean? It's like if you've got the knowledge, if you don't do nothing with it, or something with it, you're not going to do anything. And you're not going to be rich by Friday, no matter what. It's just, trust me, if there were magic beans, Carla and I would be off planting magic beans. We wouldn't be here on this freaking video, right? Yeah. So, hey, your coaching program, is it open all the time or is it limited?
No, it's, I actually just closed registration for it last night.
Timing. So how often do you do it?
I haven't quite decided on that. I've had it open on and off for the past few years, or for the past 2.5 years. But I'm thinking I'll probably open it again in the next couple of months at some point for sure, maybe the next month and a half. With the program, it's, work at your own pace kind of thing, but I'm very involved in the Facebook group and I do live bi-weekly calls with everyone. So there definitely is that interaction between, and the group is highly engaged and a really wonderful group of people. So
that's one of the things I liked about being in your mastermind is you are, of course, very supportive, but all the members, I mean, everybody was great.
Yeah.
Very, very supportive.
Helpful. And I think it's like, because they know that I emphasize an environment of non-competition.
Yeah.
Like there's enough for everybody. That's the thing. There is enough to go around for everybody. So there's no need to be like secretive or I don't expect people to share their pen names. Like that is like not necessary, and don't expect people to share their specific niches. But when it comes to strategy, everyone in my program has the same basis. And so helping each other out in that way is awesome.
Do you still think the opportunity is there? Could someone start today and build a 6-figure business on Kindle?
Yeah, 100%. Even bigger now. And I would never say easier, but it's easier to reach a bigger audience because of different programs online now to develop your audience and different ways to reach them and to network with other authors and publishers. And it's amazing. So yes, 100%. If you stay committed and you want to provide high quality stories to people and really commit to doing a good job of it and to commit to being a marketer and that's the thing. I think it's important. That's a huge part. And I think I think you mentioned earlier that from the beginning, I've always approached my ebook publishing business as a marketer. Right. Like that's what I am. I'm a marketer. So yeah, accepting that part of it will, especially if you're just on the author side and kind of like scared of it or hesitant to, as soon as you accept that you're a marketer and get comfortable with putting yourself out there a little bit more, it's things really, really start to open up.
Awesome. One of the things I want to talk about the next time we do this, and you're going to commit to doing a second interview, Carla, I want to talk about the mastermind groups and how your business has really blossomed really in the last year when you started going to masterminds and learning from others, just as folks learned from you. So I'm putting that on my page of notes for interview number 2 with Carla. So Carla Marie, this has been great. Tell the folks how to either get in touch with you or learn more about what you do.
Sure. Thanks so much, Tim, for chatting with me. That was really fun. So the best way to reach me or to find out more about me or whatever is to check out my YouTube channel. So I'll give you a link to that. Also, I have a free Facebook community group called Carla Marie Self-Publishing Community. So I'll have a link to that. And also I'm on Clarity. So if you want to book a live phone call with me, to talk about anything publishing related. If you need help with anything, you can book a call with me through there. And I think the shortest time increment on there is 15 minutes. So you can kind of book by the 15 minutes. So.
And Carla is great. If you just need someone to calm you down, book some time with Carla, because she will. It's going to be okay, Tim. Calm down. So, Carla, this has been great, and we do need to do a part 2. And we'll drop links to everything in the description below. And we really appreciate you sharing. And congratulations on all your success.
Thanks so much, Tim. We'll talk to you in the next interview.